Ethan and Olivia's seemingly perfect marriage begins to unravel during an exclusive island retreat hosted by the enigmatic Martin Gray. As Ethan uncovers Olivia's affair with their charismatic host, his rage transforms into a calculated plan for revenge. But as tensions rise and secrets spill, the once idyllic paradise becomes the backdrop for betrayal, heartbreak, and devastating consequences. What starts as a quest for justice takes an unexpected turn, proving that even the most carefully laid plans can lead to unimaginable tragedy. The island loomed in the distance, its jagged silhouette framed by the soft glow of a sinking sun. The plane hummed steadily beneath us, and Olivia sat by my side, flipping through her phone with the practiced attachment that had become her hallmark in recent months. I stared out the window, my mind as restless as the waves below. The invitation had come 2 weeks earlier, delivered with the kind of fanfare reserved for the rich and powerful. Martin Gray, a billionaire entrepreneur and the newest client of Olivia's PR firm, was hosting a weekend retreat for select associates. My initial reaction was excitement. After all, who wouldn't want a getaway to a private island? But Olivia's reaction had been different. Too eager, too rehearsed. I'd chalked it up to the pressures of her job, but now, staring at her serene profile, I wasn't so sure. Olivia had always been beautiful in an understated way. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight just right, and her smile, when genuine, could brighten the darkest of days. But that smile had been scarce lately, replaced by something guarded. She spent more time at the office, buried herself in her phone, and avoided my questions with a kind of practiced grace that made me question my own instincts. I hadn't voiced my concerns, the fear of appearing paranoid kept me silent. Instead, I told myself this weekend was a chance to reconnect, to rediscover the bond that had tethered us for 8 years. But as the plane touched down on the island's makeshift runway, a knot formed in my stomach, a warning bell I chose to ignore. The island was as advertised, paradise incarnate. Lush greenery spilled down to powdery white beaches, and the villa where we were staying could have graced the cover of a luxury travel magazine. Martin greeted us personally, his handshake firm, his smile dazzling. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair that suggested both wisdom and virility. He had the kind of presence that drew people in effortlessly. "Welcome, Ethan." "Olivia," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "I trust the flight wasn't too taxing." "Not at all," Olivia replied, her tone light and flirtatious. "Too flirtatious." I caught the flicker of something in her eyes, a spark I hadn't seen in months. My grip tightened on the strap of my bag. Martin led us to our suite, a sprawling room with panoramic ocean views. Olivia was practically bouncing with excitement, her mood buoyant in a way that made me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. "Isn't this incredible?" she asked, twirling in the center of the room. The sunlight caught the gold flecks in her eyes, and for a moment, I wanted to believe that everything was fine, that I was imagining the distance between us. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "It's perfect." The first evening passed in a blur of cocktails and introductions. Martin was the consummate host, charming and attentive. He made a point of engaging with every guest, but his attention lingered on Olivia just a little too long. She, in turn, seemed drawn to him, laughing at his jokes, leaning in when he spoke. My unease grew with every passing hour. I tried to distract myself with the other guests, but their small talk only irritated me. The island's beauty felt suffocating, its perfection a cruel mockery of the storm brewing within me. When dinner ended and the group dispersed, I followed Olivia back to our suite, desperate to address the tension head-on. "Are you okay?" I asked as she slipped out of her heels. "Of course," she replied, her tone too casual. "Why wouldn't I be? You seemed close with Martin tonight." She froze for a split second, then turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ethan, don't be ridiculous. He's just being a good host." I wanted to believe her, but the knot in my stomach tightened. The next day brought a whirlwind of activities: snorkeling, jet skiing, and lounging by the pool. Martin was everywhere, his presence magnetic. Olivia gravitated toward him, their conversations animated and private. I tried to join in, but it was like watching a play where I wasn't cast in any role. That afternoon, while Olivia and Martin were engaged in what looked like an intense discussion by the bar, I took a walk along the beach. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The waves lapped at my feet, their rhythm soothing but not enough to calm the turmoil within me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The way Olivia's eyes lit up around Martin, the way she seemed to come alive in his presence, it was a stark contrast to the detachment she'd shown me for months. The evidence was circumstantial, sure, but it was damning nonetheless. As the day turned to night, I resolved to let it go, to stop imagining things that might not be there. But that resolve shattered when I glanced at Olivia's phone, which she'd left unattended for the first time in ages. A message flashed on the screen: "Can't wait to see you tonight. Meet me by the cabana. M." My blood ran cold. The truth I'd been avoiding was staring me in the face, undeniable and cruel. My wife wasn't just distant, she was gone. I put the phone down, careful not to disturb it, and took a deep breath. Confronting her now would only lead to a scene, one that Martin would undoubtedly enjoy watching unfold. No, I needed to be smarter, to play the long game. If Olivia thought she could deceive me, she was sorely mistaken. That evening, as the others laughed and drank by the bonfire, I stayed close to Olivia, my demeanor calm and collected. She seemed nervous, her eyes darting toward the cabana every few minutes. When she excused herself under the pretense of needing some air, I let her go, waiting a beat before following her into the shadows. What I saw confirmed everything. Olivia and Martin stood close, their whispers carried away by the ocean breeze. When he placed a hand on her arm, she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, her expression one of unguarded intimacy. I turned away, my chest tightening with a mix of rage and heartbreak. The betrayal was real, and it was happening right in front of me. But instead of confronting them, I walked back to the villa, my mind racing. If they thought they could humiliate me, they were wrong. I wasn't going to let this slide. Revenge, after all, is a dish best served cold. The villa was quiet when I returned, the muffled sounds of laughter and music fading into the night. My heart pounded in my chest, the images of Olivia and Martin seared into my mind. The betrayal was as clear as the moonlight glinting off the ocean waves, and I knew there was no turning back. I sank into the plush armchair by the window, staring out at the endless expanse of water. A part of me wanted to confront Olivia immediately, to demand an explanation and force her to face the consequences of her actions. But another part, the sharper, more calculating part, urged me to wait. Confronting her now would be emotional, reactive. If I wanted to win, I needed to be strategic. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for, Daniel. He was a private investigator I'd worked with years ago when my company suspected internal sabotage. Daniel was discreet, efficient, and ruthless, exactly what I needed. I sent him a message: "Need your help. Confidential. Call me ASAP." Minutes later, my phone vibrated. I stepped out onto the balcony to take the call, the salty breeze cooling the fire in my veins. "Ethan," Daniel greeted, his voice steady. "What's going on?" "It's personal this time," I said, my tone clipped. "I think my wife is cheating on me." There was a pause, followed by a low whistle. "That's heavy." "You sure?" "I'm sure. I need evidence, concrete, undeniable proof." Daniel didn't hesitate. "I'll need details. Where are you? Who's the other guy?" I quickly filled him in, keeping my voice low. "The island, Martin, the messages," it all spilled out in a rush. Daniel listened intently, asking pointed questions and jotting down notes. "All right," he said when I finished. This isn't my usual setup, but I can work with it. I'll guide you through some steps to gather evidence. You have a phone with a decent camera? Yeah. Good. Start taking pictures, videos if you can. Anything that shows them together. And make sure to back everything up somewhere secure. Got it. And Ethan? Keep your cool. Don't let her know you're onto her. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Thanks, Daniel. Anytime. Call me if you need anything else. I ended the call and leaned against the railing, the enormity of the situation settling over me like a heavy cloak. Gathering evidence felt calculated and cold, but it was necessary. If Olivia wanted to destroy our marriage, she wouldn't get to walk away unscathed. The next morning, I played my part perfectly. Over breakfast, I was the doting husband, laughing at jokes and engaging in polite conversation. Olivia seemed cautious, her eyes flicking to me as if trying to gauge my mood. She had no idea I'd seen her with Martin, or that I was already laying the groundwork for her downfall. The day's activities were more of the same: kayaking, beach volleyball, and lounging by the infinity pool. Martin was everywhere, his charisma drawing everyone to him like moths to a flame. Olivia stayed close to him, their connection growing bolder with each passing hour. I watched from a distance, my phone discreetly capturing moments that would later serve as irrefutable evidence. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, I had dozens of photos and several short videos. One, in particular, made my stomach churn: Olivia and Martin walking hand in hand along the shore, their heads bowed in quiet conversation. It was intimate, damning, and everything I needed to justify what came next. That evening, during dinner, I took my plan a step further. Martin's wife, a stunning brunette named Evelyn, sat at the far end of the table, her laughter bright and genuine. She seemed oblivious to her husband's indiscretions, a fact that filled me with equal parts pity and anger. When the meal was over, I approached her under the guise of casual conversation. "Evelyn, right?" I asked, offering my most charming smile. She looked up, surprised but pleased. "That's me. And you're Ethan?" "Correct. My wife, Olivia, speaks very highly of you." Evelyn's smile widened. "That's sweet. I'll admit, I haven't had much chance to get to know everyone yet." "Well, maybe we can change that," I said smoothly. "It's always nice to make new friends." Her expression softened, and I saw the spark of interest in her eyes. If Olivia could play games, so could I. The next few days passed in a blur of careful maneuvering. I continued to play the perfect husband, all while deepening my connection with Evelyn. We shared stories, laughed over cocktails, and exchanged knowing glances that didn't go unnoticed by Olivia. I could see her discomfort growing, the cracks in her confidence beginning to show. The turning point came on the final night. Martin had arranged a grand farewell dinner, complete with live music and a fireworks display. Everyone was in high spirits, the alcohol flowing freely. Olivia wore a sleek black dress that hugged her curves, and while she looked stunning, her eyes kept darting toward me and Evelyn. I took full advantage, leaning in close to Evelyn as we talked, my laughter louder than necessary. I could feel Olivia's gaze burning into me, her jealousy a palpable force. When the evening wound down and the group began to disperse, I caught Olivia watching me from across the room. Her expression was unreadable, but I didn't care. The game was in motion, and I was winning. As she approached me, I straightened, my smile calm and calculated. "Having fun?" I asked, my tone light. She hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "What's going on, Ethan?" "What do you mean?" "You and Evelyn. You've been close." I shrugged, feigning innocence. "She's just a friend. Like you and Martin, right?" Her face paled, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it. But she said nothing, her silence confirming everything I already knew. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. Careful, Olivia. You might not like the consequences of your actions. Without waiting for her response, I walked away, leaving her standing there, her perfect world beginning to crumble. The villa was quieter than usual the next morning. The usual chatter over breakfast was muted, with Olivia stealing glances at me as if trying to decipher my mood. She had always been good at reading me, but now, I had the upper hand. My facade was flawless, my anger masked by an icy calm that kept her on edge. The evidence I'd collected was enough to blow up her affair, but I wasn't finished. If Olivia thought she could humiliate me, she was about to learn otherwise. The day unfolded with the same routine: group activities, drinks by the pool, and casual conversations. But beneath the surface, the tension between us was palpable. Olivia avoided Martin more than usual, likely worried that I might have noticed something. It was almost laughable how obvious she was being. By midday, I made my move. Evelyn and I had grown comfortable in each other's company, and she seemed genuinely delighted by my attention. We found ourselves seated together on a shaded patio overlooking the ocean, the warm breeze carrying the scent of salt and jasmine. "You seem distant today," Evelyn said, her voice light but curious. "Is everything okay?" I smiled, taking a sip of my drink. "Just a lot on my mind." She leaned in slightly, her dark eyes filled with concern. "Care to share?" For a moment, I hesitated. This was the tipping point, the moment where I could choose to lay my cards on the table or keep playing the game. I decided on a middle ground. "It's Olivia," I admitted, my voice heavy with feigned vulnerability. "She's been different lately." Evelyn tilted her head, her brow furrowing. "Different how?" "Distracted. Distant. I can't shake the feeling that something's going on." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "But maybe I'm just being paranoid." Her hand found mine, a gesture of comfort that I knew would sting Olivia if she saw. "You're not paranoid, Ethan. Sometimes, when we feel something is off, it's because it is." Her words hung between us, heavy with implication. I wondered if she suspected Martin's infidelity but lacked the proof, or perhaps the will, to confront it. That night, the villa came alive with music and laughter. Martin had arranged another lavish dinner, the kind of event that screamed opulence. The table was set with fine china and crystal glasses, the centerpiece a cascade of orchids and candles. Olivia sat across from me, her smile forced as she chatted with the others. I could see the cracks forming in her mask, her discomfort growing with each passing moment. I excused myself midway through the meal, stepping out onto the balcony under the guise of needing fresh air. In truth, I needed space to finalize my next move. The photos and videos I'd taken were safely backed up, but I needed something more, a moment that would turn suspicion into certainty for everyone involved. As I leaned against the railing, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Daniel. "Everything set on your end?" "Almost," I replied. "Any advice?" His response was immediate. "Don't rush. The more controlled you are, the more devastating your reveal will be." I slipped my phone back into my pocket, taking a deep breath. Control was key, and I wasn't about to lose mine now. The opportunity presented itself after dinner, when Martin announced a bonfire by the beach. Everyone gathered around the roaring flames, drinks in hand, the atmosphere relaxed and jovial. I positioned myself near the edge of the group, my phone discreetly recording as Olivia and Martin drifted off to the side, their conversation just audible over the crackling fire. "You've been quiet tonight," Martin said, his tone low and intimate. Olivia glanced around, her gaze briefly meeting mine before she looked away. "I'm just tired. It's been a long day." "You're worried, aren't you?" He reached for her hand, his touch lingering. "Don't be. He doesn't suspect anything." Her hesitation was brief but telling. "I don't know, Martin. He's been different. Relax, he murmured, his voice dripping with confidence. By the time this weekend is over, everything will be fine. I stopped recording, my chest tightening with a mix of rage and triumph. They were so brazen, so confident in their deception, and they had no idea what was coming. When the bonfire died down and the group began to disperse, I lingered behind, watching as Olivia and Martin exchanged a subtle glance before parting ways. She approached me cautiously, her expression guarded. "Are you coming to bed?" she asked, her tone light but strained. "In a bit," I replied, my voice calm. "I just need a moment." She nodded, clearly relieved that I wasn't pushing her for answers. Little did she know, I already had them. Once she was gone, I sent the recording to Daniel, along with the photos and videos I'd taken over the past few days. His response was swift and simple: "This is it. Time to pull the trigger." I spent the rest of the night planning my move, my resolve solidifying with every passing hour. By morning, the illusion of paradise would shatter, and Olivia's perfect world would crumble at her feet. When I finally crawled into bed, she was already asleep, her breathing steady and untroubled. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity, my life. And come morning, I would do just that. The morning broke with a heavy sky, the sun obscured by thick gray clouds that cast a dull pall over the island. The vibrant paradise seemed muted, as if nature itself was bracing for what was about to unfold. I stood by the window, sipping a bitter cup of coffee, my resolve unwavering. Today would be the endgame. Olivia stirred in the bed behind me, groaning softly as she woke. I didn't turn to look at her. The sound of her movement felt hollow, distant. She stretched and mumbled something about the weather before heading to the bathroom. I watched her reflection in the window as she passed, her silhouette blurred and ghost-like against the glass. The villa buzzed with activity as the group gathered for breakfast, everyone eager to make the most of their final day on the island. Martin played the charming host, his smile bright and disarming. Olivia, seated beside him, seemed nervous, her laugh forced, her eyes darting to me more often than usual. I played my role to perfection, engaging in light conversation and maintaining the facade of a loving husband. Evelyn was by my side, her presence a quiet reassurance that I wasn't alone in this. She had confided in me the night before, her suspicions about Martin confirmed by my revelations. Together, we had planned to confront them after breakfast, to force the truth into the open. As the meal wound down, I rose from my seat, clearing my throat to catch everyone's attention. The chatter quieted, all eyes turning to me. "Before we all go our separate ways," I began, my voice steady, "I think it's important to acknowledge the bonds we've formed this weekend. This island, this experience, it's been unforgettable." Martin beamed, raising his glass in a mock toast. "Well said, Ethan. I'm glad you all feel that way. But," I continued, my tone sharpening, "not everything about this trip has been pleasant. In fact, some things have been downright deceptive." A ripple of unease passed through the group. Olivia shifted in her seat, her eyes narrowing as she tried to gauge where I was going. "Martin," I said, locking eyes with him, "you've been a gracious host. Generous, even. But there's something you've taken that doesn't belong to you." His smile faltered, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. "I'm not sure I follow." "Oh, I think you do." I turned to Olivia, my gaze hard and unyielding. "Why don't you tell them, Olivia? Or should I?" Her face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing as she searched for words. The silence was deafening, the tension thick enough to choke on. "I don't know what you're talking about," she finally said, her voice trembling. "Don't you?" I pulled out my phone, opening the gallery and projecting the damning photos and videos onto the large TV in the corner of the room. The images spoke for themselves, intimate moments between Olivia and Martin, stolen glances, and whispered words captured in perfect clarity. The room erupted into chaos. Gasps, Murmurs and angry whispers filled the air. Evelyn stood abruptly, her face a mask of fury as she turned on Martin. "You bastard," she hissed. "How long has this been going on?" Martin stammered, his usual charm crumbling under the weight of the evidence. "Evelyn, I can explain." "Don't," she snapped. "You've humiliated me enough." Olivia broke down, tears streaming down her face as she tried to plead with me. "Ethan, please. I never meant to hurt you. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, my voice hollow. "No, Olivia. A mistake is forgetting your anniversary. This was a choice. Over and over again, you chose to betray me." She reached for me, but I stepped back, the gesture cutting her more deeply than words ever could. "Enough," I said, my voice cold. "We're done." The confrontation spiraled into a storm of accusations and recriminations, the once idyllic group fractured beyond repair. Evelyn stormed out, followed by Martin, who was too stunned to put up a fight. Olivia collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably, while the other guests looked on in stunned silence. I left the villa without another word, the weight of what had happened pressing down on me like a boulder. The sky had darkened further, the promise of rain heavy in the air. I walked aimlessly along the beach, my feet sinking into the sand as waves crashed around me. The victory I had imagined felt hollow, the triumph tainted by a profound sense of loss. As I rounded a bend, I saw Olivia standing at the edge of a cliff, her silhouette stark against the turbulent sea. My heart clenched at the sight of her, fragile and broken. I quickened my pace, a primal instinct urging me to reach her. "Olivia!" I called out, my voice barely audible over the roar of the waves. She turned to face me, her eyes red and swollen. "Ethan, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her words carried away by the wind. "I don't know how to fix this." I approached cautiously, my anger tempered by an unexpected surge of compassion. "Olivia, come down. Let's talk." She shook her head, her expression anguished. "You were my world, Ethan. And I destroyed it. I destroyed us. Come down," I urged, my voice breaking. "Please." But before I could reach her, the ground beneath her feet crumbled. Her scream pierced the air as she fell, her body disappearing into the churning waves below. I froze, the world tilting on its axis as the reality of what had just happened sank in. I scrambled to the edge, peering over to see only the roiling sea. She was gone, swallowed by the unforgiving ocean. For a long moment, I stood there, numb and disbelieving. The storm that had been building finally broke, rain lashing down as if the heavens themselves were mourning. My victory had turned to ashes, the cost of revenge higher than I'd ever imagined. I walked back to the villa in a daze, the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I had wanted justice, closure, but all I was left with was emptiness. Sometimes, in our pursuit of retribution, we lose more than we ever stood to gain.